Before delivering his keynote address at the Los Angeles Times Multicultural Business Forum in Los Angeles, California, Mandell Crawley, the Global Chief Marketing Officer, sat down with me for an exclusive conversation. I'm Michael Reel, and this is RealUrbanNews.com. Mandell, we were just talking off camera. You have a global title, Chief Marketing Officer for Morgan Stanley. Sounds like an awesome responsibility. Tell us about it.
So it's a privilege. My firm, Morgan Stanley's been around for over 80 years. Servicing clients that are made up of institutions, corporations, governments, and individual investors. I've had the privilege of working there for 25 years. I've done a number of things in the organization, but the last couple of years I've been Chief Marketing Officer. And that's a great responsibility because the brand has been, it's our greatest asset. And so how we position the brand in the marketplace with clients, employees, and those in our target audience who currently don't bank with us is a really important, level of responsibility. We do a lot to support our advisors, our bankers, and others who are facing off with clients, to sort of promote client engagement, create unique experiences for clients. So that's a big part of the remit as well. And then one of the things that I'm really excited about and focused on is sort of shifting what marketing is sort of perceived as, this creative function and making it a more commercial function. There are a lot of things that we're doing as a team to sort of make that happen too. So it's a great time to be in marketing for sure.
We hear this term branding. And it's everywhere. We didn't know Coca-Cola was branding. Xerox, they were branding. What is branding?
Branding, it depends on who you ask, right? But for me, it's about an experience. And the beauty of being at Morgan Stanley, and I tell people this all the time, even as the head marketing guys, that the brand of our firm is driven by our people. And what I mean by that is, your perception of Morgan Stanley, if you are an investment banking client, is driven by investment bankers. If you are a member of our wealth management business, your perception of Morgan Stanley is driven by our financial advisors that are serving them all across the country. Or if you're in our investment management business and you're a client of the firm, the brand of the firm is driven by our portfolio managers and our salespeople. So the brand is all about, what experience does a client have with you and what sort of feeling does that sort of conjure up as a result of that relationship. So, and the good thing for us, and I say this often, to know us is to love us, right? We get really high marks from our clients, but that to me is branding in essence.
Are you surprised that you're here from Chicago, got this great title?
I was a high school intern and 17 years old. And there was nothing intentional about me in terms of getting into financial services. I wanted to be a teacher. And I was fulfilling a work-study requirement. I went to a vocational high school, west side of Chicago, raised by grandparents from the South. First in my family to go to college. So there were zero expectations. In fact, I love telling the story. When I interviewed, I showed up at Morgan Stanley with a gold suit on, a black shirt, and black and gold tie. I can't remember if I had the gold shoes on or not, but you wear that suit in combo to a Baptist church, the mothers are telling you how good you look. You wear that to an interview at an investment bank, a very conservative investment bank, they're probably like, what the heck just walked into here?
Call it security.
Exactly. And I said that they hired me either because they felt sorry for me or because they said, look, anybody that's that bold to wear that outfit downtown Chicago, we want them on our team. So I tell myself it's the latter, but I know it was the former for sure. Things like this don't happen without a great deal of fortune or what I would say is favor. I've had a great amount of favor in my life, and that combined with hard work and a great support system, and here we are.
I know you're a proponent of relationships, professional relationships. How important are they?
Pat Summitt, who was the great women's basketball coach at Tennessee for many years. She was being honored a few years ago, and one of the things she said when she accepted the award was, you win in life with people. And it resonated with me, and I think that that's incredibly true. I mean, anybody that says, you hear these stories, these narratives of folks when they say, I'm a self-made, XYZ. I just don't believe in that. I think that, to have success of any sort, I mean, you have to have a support network. And so whether it's mentors, sponsors, family, friends, and I always talk about, having mentors who give you the true Hollywood story, when you're not your best and you need that raw feedback. I've had a number of those folks in my life, and I've worked for really good people. So that's been really helpful for me.
How important are events like the Los Angeles Times Multicultural Business Expo?
Yeah.
How important is this event?
Events like this for our firm, it's really important. Morgan Stanley has an aspiration to be the firm of choice, both in terms of talent, trying to attract multicultural talent, diverse talent, and clients. We want to be the firm of choice for multicultural, individuals and communities. And I don't think anyone in the financial services category has really sort of owned that space. So there's a bit of an arms race, if you will. I wish I had a better expression.
Sure.
Of sort of positioning ourselves in this community, in this broad community, as a destination. Again, we want talented individuals, whether you want to be a financial advisor or a banker or a technologist, there's a place for you here at Morgan Stanley. We recently refreshed our recruiting campaign in which we challenge individuals who want to come and work at a firm like Morgan Stanley and say, what are you going to create? What value will you create when you come work at a firm like this? And we really are focused on multicultural talent. And then in terms of clients, I mean, there's the face of this country is changing. The tanning of this country is real. And for those institutions that aren't smart about, making sure that their employee base is, mirrors the society, I think you lose in the long term. So.
What does that say about Morgan Stanley that they realize, using your phrase, that the nation is tanning?
Mm-hmm. It's just an honest assessment of the realities of our time. I mean, obviously we're in interesting times now, and in political and obviously it's a fairly divisive sort of environment, unfortunately. But one of the things that we recognize that we've got to do a much better job in terms of catching up with society. So if you look at legacy Wall Street, this isn't a Morgan Stanley comment, this is just true of the industry. In terms of the number of black and brown faces that we have in our firms, I mean, we need to improve. But we obviously want to be smart about how we do that. And partnering with programs like tonight is an opportunity for us to plant our flag and say, hey, we are here, we're open for business. And like I said, not just because we want a share of your wallet from a business standpoint, but we'd love for you to consider Morgan Stanley as an employer. And I will tell you, just in my own personal story, being there 25 years and having the opportunity to do a lot of different things and having a lot of different mentors and sponsors, it's an unbelievable culture.
And that's interesting. Corporate America, you have clearly mastered the culture of corporate America. Talk about that and how important that is for a young professional entering into that realm.
Yeah, I don't know. I definitely would say I mastered it. I got a bunch of scars, from missteps and foot faults along the way. But I would tell you, there was a real benefit of starting so early. Sometimes when I'm so young, you don't know what you don't know. And my grandparents, I give them a lot of props in terms of how they raised my brothers and I. And being the only African American, right, that worked in this trading environment when I first started out. For the first 7 years, I was the only African American on the desk. And for some reason, it never bothered me. Like, I never was uncomfortable. I never sort of had this feeling like, and I give the people who I worked with the credit, because they never made me feel uncomfortable. In fact, they went further and brought me into their homes and, took me on ski trips and stuff like that. So I never felt like I didn't belong there. And then once I, sort of got this sort of sense that, this was a place that I could actually make a career out of, my own personal talents and gifts and all that stuff sort of took over and has made a difference over time.
You talk about, in a recent interview, you discussed sometimes success moves at a, paraphrasing,
glacier speed.
At a glacier speed.
Change is
slow.
Yeah.
What do you tell young people who are inundated,
Yeah.
via social media,
Yeah.
via television,
Yeah.
and everybody wants the bling,
Yeah.
and we want it overnight?
Yeah.
What do you say?
Well, as it relates to success, I mean, there's a lot of things, right? Just as automation and digital takes over, there are a lot of things that are happening quicker, sooner. So expectations are shifting as a result of that. But as it relates to career success, it takes time. I mean, there is a process, and you can go back to a time in which read pieces from Socrates, and even there they talk about young people and how impatient they were. So for all the emphasis around millennials and they want it now, I mean, I think they said the same about Gen Xers. They said the same thing about Boomers. They said the same thing about, I think, any cohort of young people that's coming of age. I think it's sort of this easy thing to focus on, like the impatience. But the reality is, it's a process, man. It takes time, and I think on this topic of diversity, like particularly diversity in financial services firms, I tell people realistically, we may want a more diverse workforce, but this isn't something because this is a legacy issue, right? This is an issue that's decades, right? It's going to take time. I oftentimes refer to it as when Kennedy referred to, we're going to put a man on the moon in 10 years.
Sure.
This is a 10-year solve. This isn't a solve, in 1 year or 2 years or what have you. It's going to take time for us to truly become the firm that we want to be from a diversity perspective. It's a process.
You travel the globe. Where's the new wealth?
One of the things that there's a lot of talk about is these new sort of wealth pools that are being created, and then wealth transfer is something that people talk a lot about. Millennials, and when you think about in this country, clearly the greatest liquidity is in the Bay Area, right? Even with the energy pullback, you go to places like Houston, even the Dakotas, right, with the energy boom that they have. So there are clear places where there's some obvious liquidity, and then you start to go into like the emerging markets.
Sure.
In Africa is some of the countries in Africa where you've got countries that are sort of on the frontier of sort of achieving what we call escape velocity and sort of creating new pockets of wealth. But I think that when I think about our business, for the next 10 years, I think we're pretty clear that the clients that we currently serve today, high net worth, ultra high net worth sort of investors, and we have a fairly decent size book of non-resident sort of clients. I just don't see this massive shift in wealth from where we sit today. I mean, clearly, a country like China, right, and what's happening in China, eventually they will be the largest economy in the world, so you clearly have to pay attention to them. But outside of the U.S., I'm not sure that there's another, again, China notwithstanding, but there's another sort of wave of wealth creation that is greater than what we have going on right here. It's my own personal view.
What about this tech market?
This really cuts to the heart of the campaign that we are telling at Morgan Stanley. We talk about how capital creates change, and you just have this proliferation of innovation, right, that's happening obviously in the tech sector, but you've got other things happening in energy and healthcare and clearly other verticals. Transportation, Uber, right, is a classic example of that. And one of the things that's exciting for us, right, again, just getting to the essence of our business is, innovation doesn't happen without idea, right? The idea is essential to innovation, obviously, by definition. But in order for that idea to become real and to truly be transformational and have like a meaningful impact on our communities and our day-to-day lives, you need capital, right? And so the business that we're in is we try to basically, harness capital to marry with these innovative ideas that we're seeing, whether again it's in the tech sector or energy or pick your vertical. And that's a powerful thing, and that's why we've chosen to tell the story the way we tell our story is we identify clients who we do business with who are doing all of these innovative things to enhance our lives. But when people think of banking, they just think of evil Wall Street, poor banks, and the reality is, you don't have all of this great technology and all these things that we value in our day-to-day lives if you didn't have capital sort of fueling that innovation. Netflix is a great example. Airbnb is a great example, and so many other institutions and great stories.
What do you tell young people
not just who are interested in the financial sector, but you're young, you're talented, you're black, you're male, you're continually beating the odds. What's your personal encouragement?
Yeah. Man, I don't know if we have enough film to go through this, but I appreciate the question. I will tell you, there's a number of things. Number one, I think that, having a personal view that you are exceptional, I think it's really important, right? Having our young people, young African American men, women, it's like this thing we used to say in church, you have to know that you know that you know that you know. Like, you have to know that you are exceptional. So confidence is critical. The other thing that I would say is impulse control. Young people, we talked about this earlier, patience. We're not patient, right? And we want everything like yesterday. And unfortunately, we have this view that life is this straight linear progression of success, like incremental wins along the way, and that's just not true. I mean, you will have setbacks, you will fail, you will get brushed back, you will be disappointed, people let you down all the time. So I just think being able to control one's impulse, I think is an incredibly important sort of thing for young people to know as well. But confidence, impulse control, I think that those are two things. And one of my favorite books is by this guy, Don Miguel Ruiz, and it's called The Four Agreements. And it talks about, not taking things personal, not making assumptions, always try your best. I mean, these are some of the principles that are talked about in this book. And I think that those are the types of things that young people need to sort of hold on to. Because over time, even as in the face of adversity, it helps to get you through it.
As we prepare to close, how important is it that we tell our own story?
Yeah, I think it's critically important. I mean, I think I benefit from one of my favorite reads, right? As a reader, is autobiographies of others. I love reading stories of folks who've done extraordinary things, and obviously I have a huge passion for the African American community, but I read folks who were different, right? You come from different cultures or whatever, but I it's interesting. I think about my kids. I have twin girls. They're 3 years old, and I recently partnered with a friend of mine to do a little bit of storytelling of my own, so that when they're older, it's not just when I'm old and they're taking care of me, but I want them to sort of know their father, and know my journey, and know my story, and know my scars, and hear it in my own words. So I'm a big believer in storytelling. I mean, that's just one of the most powerful ways to connect with people. And that's the beauty of what you do in terms of pulling out stories for people. So, great question.
Mandell Crawley, winning in life with people.
Yeah.
Global Chief Marketing Officer.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, partner.
Appreciate
I enjoyed
it.
it. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it, man.